Welcome, everyone. It is 12 o'clock. I'm going to get us started right on time. We are really glad you're here today. For those of you who attended our first session, Better Humans, Better AI, you can think of today as the next chapter. We're going deeper. For those of us joining us for the first time, everything you need is right here. You don't need any prior context. I'm Laura Cooke, CEO and co-founder of Positive Foundry. My husband and co-founder Chris is also on this call. He'll be running our chat and Q&A today. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and drop those questions in the Q&A so that we can answer them at the end. Today's session has one central argument that the gap between where organizations are with AI today and where they need to be is not a technology gap, it's a human gap. And the people on this call, the people leaders, all the CHROs and chief people officers and people development professionals are the ones who can close it. We're going to cover a lot of ground in 30 minutes. We'll look at the current state of AI adoption, including some numbers that may surprise you. We'll talk about what your employees are actually going through emotionally and why it looks a lot like grief. We'll make the case for why resisting AI is genuinely costly and why redirecting that energy is the smarter path. And we'll close with a framework for how investing in human flourishing is the most practical AI strategy you have. We will be asking for your thoughts at a few purposeful moments during the call, but please feel free to use that chat for your thoughts and comments throughout. I think we can all learn from each other in this half hour. And again, we have that Q&A tab open. We'll pause for questions at the end. Drop your questions in the Q&A. If you drop them in the chat, they might get missed. So please try to use both of those methods for communication today. So let's start with where things actually are and the state of AI adoption. Everyone is experimenting and few are transforming. 88% of organizations report regular use in at least one business function, according to a study by Data Rails and McKinsey, which is up from 78% just a year ago. So on paper, AI adoption has never been higher. And yet, in May of this year, consulting firm BCG reported from their research that 60% of companies report minimal or no value from AI, despite significant efforts. So the investment is real and the transformation is not. And the reason is not the technology. Here's what I'm hoping we will all understand clearly. The failure is not the technology. It's buying a tool before deciding what you want it to do and deploying it into a workforce that isn't ready. This is the window. This is where people leaders lead. Because the difference between organizations that are scaling AI successfully and those that aren't is not the tech stack, it's the people strategy. So I want to pause and see if any of this is resonating with you. I'd love to ask you to share one word that you would use to describe your org's AI adoption level. Or maybe it's two words, early experiments, actively scaling, or somewhere in between. I'd love to hear from everyone on this call. I think we can learn from each other, and I'll circle back to that in just a moment. So most people leaders understand that their workforce is anxious about AI. What's less understood, and what the newest research is illuminating, isn't that the nature is that the nature of fear has actually shifted. So in 2024, the dominant fear was job displacement. Will I have a job? And that's still present. But in 2026, the fear has evolved into something more nuanced and in a way more difficult to address. 52% of workers worry about AI's impact on their future in the workplace. So the fear is now FOBO, the fear of becoming obsolete. It's different from worrying that you'll lose your job. It's this creeping sense that your skills are degrading in real time, that you're falling behind faster than you can catch up, and that the window to stay relevant is closing while you're still trying to figure out what relevant means. And FOBO is particularly dangerous for one reason. It's quiet. It doesn't show up as protest. It shows up as polite agreement, fewer challenging questions, and people who look engaged but are privately checking out. The other thing going on is that 48% of employees are hiding their AI use from their managers and colleagues, not because they aren't using it, but because they fear judgment. People using AI in secret is a psychological safety crisis hiding inside this data. We talked last time about the importance of transparency because it leads to trust, and the data suggests we're moving in the wrong direction here. There's one more dimension of fear that I want to name, which is the deepest one and the one we talk about the least. Zach Cass was the former head of go-to-market at OpenAI. So he spent 16 years on the front line of AI, and he gave a keynote speech at ATD, the Association of Talent Development Conference this year, that really stopped me in my tracks. He said, the real consequence of AI isn't job displacement, it's identity displacement. He said the problem isn't necessarily that robots will take our jobs. It's that we will have to endure the pain of separating our work from our purpose. Are we going to know who we are if we can't constantly say, this is my career? For many of your employees, especially the highest performers and most tenured people who built their sense of self around being exceptional, AI doesn't just threaten their job security, it threatens their identity. An employee that's grieving a loss of professional identity won't be reached by a training program or a productivity metric. They need a leader who helps them see who they are is not the same as what they do, and that AI can free them to discover what they're capable of becoming. In a way, we're grieving because we're grieving a loss of the familiar. Psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross published On Death and Dying in 1969, describing the 5 stages that people move through when processing grief and loss: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I think many people are going through this process with the AI transformation. We are humans that are experiencing massive change. And I think it's helpful to recognize these stages and where our people may be in this and how these change and grief stages are really related. Change researchers have noticed this too, that employees facing major workplace change move through the same emotional stages, not because a job change equals losing a loved one, but because the mechanism is really similar. We grieve a loss of familiar, of competence, of what we knew how to do. And employees don't move from announcement to adoption in a straight line. They move through emotional reactions that affect how they feel about their work, their leaders, and their future. We're going to walk through each one of these stages. So the first stage is shock and denial. And what it looks like at work is this isn't really happening, or we'll try it and we'll go back to the way we used to do things. People seem to be listening, but they aren't actively engaging. They're too busy to attend training. They're kind of waiting for the initiative to quietly disappear. And what leaders can do is provide clear, honest communication. Don't oversell the change or minimize it, and give people a realistic picture of what is coming and why. Silence breeds rumors, and clarity builds a foundation for trust. The second stage is anger and frustration. And what it looks like at work is, why are we doing this? Or this is just going to create more work, or nobody asked us. It's this vocal resistance, venting. Sometimes it's directed at the technology, sometimes at the leadership. The energy feels negative, but it's actually a sign of engagement. People are caring enough to push back. So, what leaders can do is not react defensively, acknowledge the frustration as legitimate, create channels for people to voice their concerns without fear of consequences. This isn't a communication problem, it's a trust problem. So we really need to meet it with empathy and not persuasion. Then we have the bargaining stage. What it looks like at work is, can we use the old system for our department? Or what if we just use AI for some things? Or I'll use it, but only on certain tasks. People are trying to negotiate their way to a smaller version of the change. This is actually a positive sign because they're engaging with the reality of what's coming. So, what leaders can do is work with it and not against it, allow flexibility when it's possible, let people find their own small wins with AI. That's one of the most powerful adoption strategies available, giving people agency in how they engage. Then we dip into low mood and disengagement in the fourth stage. So, what it looks like at work is a drop in energy, motivation, and confidence. So, people who were previously strong performers may seem uncertain. They're not sure they have what it takes to succeed in the new environment. And this stage is often invisible and the most dangerous. What leaders can do here is visible investment in development matters the most. Reskilling, mentoring, structured learning, showing people concretely that the organization believes in their ability to grow. The single most powerful antidote to FOBO is a leader who says, I see your future here, and I'm going to help you get there. And finally, we get to acceptance and commitment. And what it looks like at work, people begin experimenting with AI on their own terms. They find workflows that work for them. They start mentoring others. Confidence is rebuilding. They begin to see the technology as a tool that enhances their work rather than threatens it. And what leaders can do here is recognize and celebrate those early adopters, share stories of the wins, not just the productivity metrics, but actual examples of people doing better work, saving time on tedious tasks, using AI to focus on the parts of their job that they want to outsource, making the journey very visible. I do want to note about this model that people don't move through these stages in order. They can skip, they can regress, they can experience multiple stages at the same time, and not everybody will be in the same stage at the same time. So, one of the most challenging aspects of leading through change is that our job is not to rush people to acceptance. It's really to meet them where they are and create the conditions that make the movement possible. I am so curious to know from each of you, where would you say most of your workforce is right now relative to AI? What stage of this change curve do you think is common mostly for your team? So shock and denial, anger and frustration, bargaining, low mood or disengagement or acceptance. I'd love to know from you kind of what you're seeing. And I'm going to read the chat really quick for any of the comments earlier. Let's see. Looking at Chris. Oh, I don't have anything there yet. So, all right, we've got a lot of cautious, slow roll, some hesitant on the first question. And we've got some good conversations on where people are right now with this change curve. Oh my gosh, so good. I think hopefully many of you are seeing some similarities with what you're sharing. So, the kindest thing we can do for our people is to be honest about what is at stake. Resistance to AI is understandable. We just talked about why. But while the emotional experience of resistance is valid, the decision to remain in it has real measurable consequences for organizations and individuals. We actually need our teams to progress. And here is why. The IMD Gartner study is predicting that organizations that fail to reach AI native operations by 2027 risk being structurally uncompetitive. Like that is fast change. The window for organizations and the individuals within them to build this AI capability is open, but it won't be open indefinitely. The research also tells us that the organizations creating the conditions for their people to develop AI capability are outperforming those that aren't. So this isn't just an individual decision, it's actually a leadership responsibility. And the good news is that this fear can become fuel if we address it. So the research does not just describe the problem, it describes the solution with remarkable consistency. AI anxiety can motivate employees to learn, upskill, and innovate, but only when organizations create a psychologically safe, learning-oriented culture. Fear isn't the enemy, but unaddressed fear is. So in the right conditions, that same energy that fuels that resistance can really be redirected into curiosity and growth and engagement. A survey from Gallup in February of this year had employees report that AI made their work better. 65% of employees said AI improved their productivity and efficiency. So the people that moved through the change curve found their footing overwhelmingly positive. So the question is, how do we get people there? And the research points to 5 conditions that move people from that resistance to engagement. And the 5 conditions are transparency, role clarity, role specific learning, visible manager support, and a clear personal benefit. So let's look for just a moment at each one. So the first condition, transparency. Lack of communication creates rumor driven narratives that are always worse than the truth. So employees have a right to know when and how AI is being used to make or influence decisions about them. Transparency is not a nice to have, it's the foundation of trust. So we need to be open and honest. I personally love when I get an email that said, Claude helped me with this, and here's what I'm sharing. Transparency. The second condition is role clarity. The number one driver of AI anxiety is unclear job impact. Employees who don't know what their role looks like in an AI enabled organization are going to imagine the worst case scenario. The antidote is not reassurance. It's a concrete, honest vision of what great human work looks like alongside AI. I know this can be hard, but we need to help define this and give people hope for what it can be. The third condition is role specific learning with AI. So, generic AI literacy training that doesn't connect to someone's actual job produces compliance more than adoption. People need to find their own wins, the specific, tedious task that AI can take off their plate, the specific decision that AI can help them think through better. Let them discover it. And it's even better when people are given that autonomy with adoption because they will see the value on their own. We also need visible manager support. Gallup's 2026 data shows that employees whose managers actively support AI use are significantly more likely to report that their work has been transformed in positive ways. Managers are that critical multiplier, so we have to equip them first. We need our managers to move to adoption so their teams can follow if they aren't already there. And people need a clear personal benefit. People don't adopt things that feel like that only benefit the organization. So, what's in it for me has to be real and specific. More time on meaningful work, better outcomes, enhanced career prospects, reduced administrative burden. When people can feel the benefit themselves, resistance dissolves. So, helping your team discover how openness to this new technology will benefit them and that learning and growth is also a great benefit of work. The keynote at ATD given by Zach Cass, that former head of go-to-market at OpenAI, offered a reframe every leader should share. The goal is no longer to teach people everything they need to know. It's to teach them how to know and why. Employers are going to care about your ability to acquire more knowledge. Learning how to learn will guarantee that. This is really the reframe from anxiety to agency. The people who thrive won't be the ones who already know the most. They'll be the ones with the most curiosity, confidence, and support to keep learning. The question was once, will AI affect my industry? But now, with almost every industry affected, the more important question is, will your organization use AI faster and more intelligently than your competitors? That divide is determining the winners and the losers, and the change has arrived. The organizations and the people who thrive are the ones who choose to engage with it on their own terms, led by people leaders who create the conditions for that engagement to happen. So I want to pause one more time for you all to share what has actually worked for you. What is one thing you've seen in your organization or others that have helped people move through that resistance to openness? I would love to hear from you in the chat. And then just a reminder to drop questions in the chat that we can dialogue and answer in just a few moments. Oh my gosh, there's such great, thanks, Jennifer Baker. Great comments here in the chat. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. How do we help move people to more openness? I want to close with the framework that's really at the heart of everything we do at Positive Foundry, and it's the most practical AI strategy available to any organization. It comes from positive psychology, specifically Dr. Martin Seligman, whose PERMA model describes the 5 elements of human flourishing, and from the growing body of research connecting flourishing to organizational performance. When employees experience higher levels of positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment, they perform better across virtually all organizational metrics. Flourishing is not a wellness initiative, it is a performance strategy, and it's the foundation for adaptability and a growth mindset that AI adoption requires. Every element of the PERMA model is also a condition for a successful AI adoption. P is positive emotion. People who experience positive emotion at work are more curious, more creative, and more resilient in the face of change. Positive emotion is not a luxury, it's the neurological foundation of adaptability. You can't build an AI ready workforce in a climate of chronic anxiety. We need our teams to have some fun and experience positive emotions at work to move through that. E stands for engagement. Engaged employees are significantly more likely to volunteer for new initiatives, adopt new tools, invest in their own development. Disengaged employees resist, not because they're difficult, but because they have no reason to believe the effort will benefit them. Strong workplace relationships are the infrastructure for learning, knowledge sharing, and psychological safety. In AI-enabled organizations, the teams with the strongest relational culture learn faster, share discoveries more freely, and develop AI fluency collectively rather than in isolation. Helping our teams build stronger relationships as we go through this time will only speed up adoption. The M stands for meaning. When people understand how their work connects to something larger, how AI frees them to do more of the work that actually matters, adoption shifts from obligation to aspiration. So the reframe from AI is taking my job to AI is clearing space for my best work is a meaning-making intervention. And lastly, people need to experience success with AI, not just be told it's coming. Small, early wins will build confidence. Confidence builds momentum, and momentum builds culture. So design for accomplishment intentionally. Pilot programs, structured learning with visible progress, celebration of early adopters, giving people a chance to experience and then share their own personal wins with AI. So, my invitation to all of you is to stop waiting for the perfect AI strategy before you invest in your people, because the investment in your people is the strategy. I have to bring Zach Cass back one more time. I mean, he did help create AI, and his closing argument at ATD 2026 is one of the most powerful endorsements of what we do as people development professionals. He listed what he believes are the true measures of a human in the age of AI: curiosity, empathy, courage, wisdom, humor, and morality. And then he said this: these things we've long dismissed as soft skills, maybe these are in fact the only skills. To navigate this moment, organizations also need to anchor their mission, vision, and values, not because the path will be perfect, but because when the tools and the workflows keep changing, people need to know what doesn't change. They need to know what you stand for, what they're building toward, the why that holds steady when the how gets reinvented. This is the work as people leaders, and it's never mattered more. The organizations that navigate this era with their cultures intact, with their best people still engaged, still growing, still present, understand one fundamental truth. AI raises the floor for everyone, but it raises the ceiling only for people who are developed enough to reach it. And your job is to help people reach it. Investing in human development, in skills, relationships, well-being, psychological safety, the conditions for flourishing, is not a parallel work stream to your AI strategy. At Positive Foundry, we believe it is your AI strategy because the technology is getting smarter every day. And the question is, are your people getting better? That's the work worth doing. And it really starts right here with all of you. Before we jump to Q&A, I want to say thank you for being here today, for bringing your experience and your questions. We'll get to the questions next, but this is exactly the kind of room where the most important thinking about the future of work happens. We have a program called Better Yet at Positive Foundry that builds the human capabilities to lead through change, including resilience, connection, and purpose. It's grounded in positive psychology and human performance research, and it's delivered by your internal champions to turn these skills into everyday practice for individual teams and organizations. We'd love to share a demo with you or continue the conversation to explore what a people development strategy looks like. Our QR codes are on the screen, the left ones to connect directly with our team, the right ones to follow us on LinkedIn. We'd love to stay in touch. Please don't forget to take care of yourselves because that's the first step in showing up as the best humans we can be. I'm going to go